So I'm officially starting a cult, which I'm sure will be one more reason for my dad to be disappointed in me. But, when I first started A Cult of Misfits, the podcast, it was just, I named it that just as sort of a way to acknowledge that I just felt like I didn't fit in. I didn't fit into any religious box or any spiritual box. I was just kind of floating out in the ether, not really having a sense of community or feeling like I fit in anywhere, like a misfit, right? So this last week, I was kind of feeling just nostalgic for, going to church. I grew up in a Christian household, and a part of me misses the ritual of going to a physical church every week that has like a sense of community and shared purpose and shared belief systems. And I just miss worship and the music and listening to the pastor talk about something that really, hit home and resonated with me and that I could kind of work on during the week, or to see things in a new perspective or something like that. So I'm kind of nostalgic for that sort of environment. And over the years, when I feel the urge, I've popped into a church here and there occasionally, and it's just never felt very satisfying, if I'm being honest. I just felt like once I left there, I felt unsatisfied. Generally, the sermon or the people were closed-minded or judgmental or hypocritical, and it just didn't resonate with me in the same way that it used to. And so I just felt unsatisfied. And so this last week, I had an epiphany of sorts, and that epiphany was to start my own church. And the word church never really resonated with me. My family, mostly my mom's side of the family, has sort of encouraged me over the years to either become a pastor or a preacher or a teacher or something along those lines. And I've always kind of felt like that was my destiny of sorts, right? Like I was sort of meant to do that, like it was part of my purpose in life. But I just never felt like I wanted to be a pastor. It just didn't resonate with me at all. And so I've always been sort of contrary in nature to how things go in the mainstream. And so I thought all right, well, if I start a church, I guess I'm going to call it a cult, right? I just want to straight up call it a cult because I think it's funny that most cults refuse to call themselves a cult for obvious reasons. And so I think it's sort of funny to just straight up say, I'm starting a cult. I'm not going to call it a church. I'm not going to call it a healing modality. I'm just going to straight up say, I'm starting a cult, and that, of course, makes me a cult leader. So I don't intend on calling myself a prophet or a messiah or anything like that. Messiah is a little too pretentious, if I'm being honest. Messiah in Hebrew means the anointed one or the chosen one. So I feel like Messiah should only be a label for two people, and that is Jesus Christ and Harry Potter, of course. So I'm not going to call myself a Messiah. I'm just going to go with the utilitarian title of cult leader because I like the ring to it, right? I feel like I'm meant for cult leadership, guys. So here I am. I sort of feel like everything has been building up to this in a way. Me just sort of getting used to creating content on a regular basis and going on Instagram Lives and talking in front of people. I recently posted footage from my very first stand-up comedy open mic, which I really enjoyed. I got a lot of great feedback on that. And I enjoyed the process of, I spent a month creating this 3-minute set to do a stand-up comedy open mic. And I really enjoyed that process. And so I kind of want to expand on that in the same way that a pastor or a preacher will get up in front of their congregation every week and create new material, right? New things to talk about. And so I really think that it's going to be a good creative outlet for myself. And so I'm kind of looking forward to that. I feel like it's all been sort of leading to this, and it feels good and it feels right. It didn't feel good and right at first. Like when I first got the epiphany to start the cult, I was like, well, I don't know about that. I had some doubts. And so I was going on a walk in the woods, as I often do with my sweet dog Chi Chi. And before I started my walk in the woods, I sort of had a moment with the universe. I sat down with God and I said, look, I don't know if I'm meant to be heading down this path metaphorically to start the cult, but I'd like a sign. I'd like you to show me a sign that I'm meant to pursue this. And the first thing that popped into my head was a snake. So I thought, like, okay, show me a snake, right? I don't see snakes very often on my walks, especially now that, summer is over. When I'm walking on the trail with Chi Chi, usually the snakes hear us and feel us coming from a mile away and they slither into their dens or wherever the hell snakes go. So I don't see snakes very often. So I thought that'll be a good symbol to let me know, like, okay, I'm meant to pursue this. So I said, show me a snake. And so I started on my walk and I take about 5 steps down the path in the woods. And sitting before me on the path, I look down, is the fattest, meatiest snake I've ever seen in my life. It's a garter snake that is the width of like a bratwurst, right? So Chi Chi starts barking and going crazy, and I'm like, what? And I look down, and there's this, bratwurst snake, and I don't know if Chi Chi's barking because he's scared or because he just wants to eat some bratwurst, but I got my sign. I got my sign from the good Lord above that I'm meant to be pursuing this because I saw a dang snake. So the next day, I'm going on another walk, as I do. And I was having some second thoughts. And I was like, I need some confirmation on this because I just want to make sure that that wasn't just a passing coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences, but, I kind of need to make sure. I need a rubber stamp on this from up above to let me know that I'm meant to pursue this. So I'm going on another walk, and I thought, like, let's just stick with the snakes theme, right? Show me a snake. Show me a snake, and then I'll have no doubt in my mind that I'm meant to pursue this. Just show me another dang snake, and I'll know that I'm on the right path here. So I start on my trail in the woods, and I turn around the bend, and I don't just see a snake. I see 5 snakes. Like within 30 seconds of me saying this to God, I show me a snake. I see 5 snakes sitting on the path. And you'd think I'm walking through, the jungles of Vietnam or something with snakes just slithering around everywhere. There's 5 snakes there. I feel like I'm in an Indiana Jones movie or something, and Chi-Chi's going nuts, and I start laughing to myself because I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm meant to be pursuing this. So thank you for this symbol. But then I start having doubts, like, is the symbol of the snake, like, is this actually from God or is this from Satan? Like, I kind of regretted choosing a snake as the symbol, but the snakes didn't offer me any apples and didn't smell of any sulfur. So I think I'm good to go on that. So it was just sort of a sign, a very loud and underlined sign from the universe that I'm meant to be pursuing this. So I'm starting a cult, and for me, a cult is basically just a group of like-minded people that follow a charismatic leader. Hi, that's me. And they have a sense of shared beliefs that may be unorthodox or divergent from other mainstream beliefs. And that's it. For me, many things fall into this category. I believe that all political parties are cults, right? They follow a charismatic leader. They have a sense of shared beliefs, a sense of shared community. I think that in the corporate world, there's definitely cults, like iPhone users and Apple people are fanatics about it. I would call that a cult as well. They have a leader, whether it's Steve Jobs or Tim Cook, right? Less of a charismatic leader than than Steve Jobs was, but it definitely has cult vibes to it, and a devotion to the brand, and even judging Android users for not being on board with their belief systems of the iPhone platform. Like Taylor Swift and her Swifties are another cult, in my opinion, right? That follow a charismatic leader and believe in mediocre music, if we're being right. I have 2 younger cousins who would just lose their minds if they heard me say anything bad about their goddess, Taylor Swift, but here we are. So I just feel like there are various cults out there. There are tens of thousands of various cults worldwide, and there always has been. But the only ones that we hear about are the ones that make headlines, the ones that make for good documentaries, right? That are sensationalized. But I just feel like there are so many cults out there that are just peaceful, right? They're just living in the woods or on their hippie commune, and they're just a group of people with shared beliefs that are trying to become the best versions of themselves that they can, and meditation and seeking enlightenment, and trying to commune with nature and the universe. And you never hear about those cults, right? You only hear about the ones that have the blood sacrifices, or make you shave your head or excommunicate yourself from your family. And so there's definitely a stigma around cults, and the word cult often just is very jarring and abrasive to most people. And I totally get it. I totally get it, because in many ways we've been programmed to believe that cults are bad, because all we ever hear about are these bad cults, right? But for me, I often talk about how bad and good are just matters of perspective, right? It's all a matter of perspective. And the example that I often like to use is the example of Star Wars. I always like seeing things from the bad guy's perspective, because oftentimes it's very easy as humans to just label a person or a group or an organization as bad, evil, immoral, right? So Darth Vader is the example here, as the classic archetype of a bad guy, right? But when you start to look at it, you realize that it's a lot deeper than that. It's more nuanced than that, that good and bad is a spectrum. At the end of the day, Darth Vader, the bad guy, was doing what he thought was right. And there were also a lot of people in the galaxy that agreed with him, that agreed with his tactics, that agreed with his stance on many things, that agreed with his views and visions on how to take things in the galaxy. Darth Vader represented order, right? And power and control. And there are many people that were on board with that, as there are today. Many humans are on board with that. They prefer to be told what to do. They don't mind a little power and control in order to get people in shape, right? To get a little order around here. And then the opposite of that is the chaos of the rebels in the Star Wars reference. That they don't want to be told what to do, that they want to be able to be free, right? And that's championed as those are the good guys, those are the heroes, right? And you say Darth Vader is the bad guy because he killed people. But what nobody ever talks about is Luke Skywalker murdered a lot of people as well. So did Yoda, so did Chewbacca, so did Han Solo, so did all of the quote unquote good guys. They all killed people, right? But nobody ever talks about that. So for me, it's all about perspective. It's all about looking at things from a different perspective. When you see these documentaries about cults, you often will see the cult member will be talking about how they've never been happier, right? They've joined this cult, they found their tribe, they found people that actually understand them and can relate to them and vibe with them, and they've never been happier in their life, right? Pursuing their own life in their own little corner of the world. And then they'll do a cut to an interview of the cult members' family members, right? Their mom or their dad or whatever, that are just petrified and terrified that their child has strayed from the flock, that they no longer believe that Jesus Christ is their Lord and Savior, right? That they're doomed for eternal damnation, and they just want to be brought back into the fold. Why can't they just come back to Jesus, right? And I see things from both perspectives. I understand why the Christian family member is freaking out about their family member joining a cult. I get it. All they've ever seen, all they've ever known is cults portrayed in a bad, dark light. And so they're terrified of that. All they know is their views on how the universe works, on how God works, on how salvation works. And so anything that strays outside of that is very scary for them. I get that. But I also understand people's desire to join a cult, right? Because as a misfit myself, I get it. I get how good it feels to have that shared sense of community, to interact with a person who actually gets what you're talking about, right? And so I understand it. And I'm not here to defend all cults, right? Because I try not to speak in those broad terms, because all cults are not the same. All religions are not the same. One man's cult is another man's religion, right? When Jesus Christ started his cult, it was frowned upon by the religious institution of the day, Judaism. the Sadducees and the Pharisees, the leaders of the temple, they were not a fan of Jesus and his little cult. Because that's what it was. He started a cult, right? And the thing about cults is the difference between a cult and a religion is a religion starts out as a cult, but then gains mainstream notoriety, right? It becomes mainstream. And then everybody's like, yeah, okay, we're all right with this. There's enough people that believe in these kooky ideas that we're just going to call it a religion. And there's nothing weird about it, nothing to see here, right? But if you happen to diverge from that, then you're weirdos, you're a cult leader, and you're bad, right? So I'm not here to defend all these cults that have been sensationalized in the news or in these documentaries, because at the end of the day, I'm not a fan of a lot of their tactics. I'm not a fan of gaslighting, of psychological manipulation, of the use of fear and control tactics, and not allowing their believers to question the narrative. I'm not a fan of any of those things. What I've been trying to do for my own life is to break free from those patterns, break free from those paradigms and those systems, and to be free at the end of the day, right? I want to be able to be free, to be a free thinker, to have an open heart, to have an open mind, and so that's ultimately what I'm promoting here at A Cult of Misfits, is the path to freedom. And that freedom is through open-mindedness and open-heartedness, and the ability to be able to be free and fluid in your belief systems. Because, to be honest, what I believed yesterday was not necessarily what I believe today, and what I believe today is not necessarily what I'm going to believe tomorrow. And for me, that's a sign of maturity, of spiritual maturity, that there's room for growth there, that I'm not locked into a dogma, that I stay there stagnant in that comfort zone for the rest of my life. And then anybody that is not within that comfort zone, that does not believe that dogma, is the quote unquote bad guys. So I'm definitely not a fan of any of those things. And I know that in many cults worldwide, especially the ones that have been sensationalized, there's often a component of, sexual impropriety. And so I just want to clear the air and let you know that this is definitely not going to be a sex cult. Truth be told, I'm pretty awkward sexually. I'm celibate. I don't like people touching me in general. With sex, there's just a lot of fluids and odors, and I'm very awkward about it all. So I'm almost just sexually autistic about the whole thing. So if you're worried that this is going to be a sex cult, because I know that many people get into cult leadership for the sex, if we're being real, I'm just definitely letting you know that that is not a part of my intention, because I'm very awkward about it to the core. And part of that is just who I am, essentially, at the essence of who I am. But there is a part of it that had to do with my household that I was raised in, right? We were raised in a Christian household, and we were definitely told that sex is bad. The Bible says that if you ever decide to touch somebody else's junk, or if you ever allow somebody else to touch your junk, then you are going to spend eternity roasting in the pits of hell. So that sort of put a filter on my sexuality my entire life. And because of that, I was terrified of sex. And so I was always afraid to flirt with anybody. I was always afraid to start any relationships with anybody, because I knew where that led. That was a slippery slope to hell, and I didn't want to go down that path. So I generally avoided all of those things my entire life, because I was petrified of it. I didn't want to end up with eternal damnation hanging over my head. And so I just sort of avoided sexuality at all costs, especially if it involved another man. Like if I were to even think about touching another man's balls, then Jesus Christ himself would strike me down with a bolt of lightning. I'm pretty sure that's in the Bible. I didn't know that Jesus had Zeus powers, but apparently thou shalt not touch another man's balls. But over the years, I kind of skirted around it a bit and sort of found some loopholes that allowed me to express my sexuality in my own way. Exchanging pictures and videos with other human beings on Instagram and Snapchat was one of those ways that I could express myself sexually. So that was good. That was fun. Didn't have to exchange any fluids or odors or uncomfortable touching. It was just sort of my way to experience sexuality via social media. So thanks to Instagram and Snapchat for that. Appreciate it. But then at some point I realized that there was some fine print about sexuality in the Bible that I wanted to look into. And, the Bible condemns sexuality unless you get yourself a piece of paper. If you get yourself a piece of paper that is signed by an officiant and filed at the local court records saying that you've gotten married, then you're good to go, apparently. Apparently, all you need is a piece of paper, and then you're good to go for sex. I didn't know that God was such a stickler for paperwork and that there was bureaucracy in heaven as well as on earth, but that's what the Bible says. So I realized that if I got married, then I was good to go for sex. And if I got married in Utah, that was a bonus, right? So this is sort of my view on sexuality. This is my sort of long-winded way of saying that I'm not here to start a sex cult at all. If you're interested in having, ritualistic sex under the full moonlight during the winter solstice or something, then maybe this isn't the cult for you. But, if you want to send me an Instagram photo or something, like, I'm down for that. A lot of cults also have a tradition that I frown upon of offing themselves, if you know what I'm saying. I can't use certain words here or I'll have these videos taken down. But there's definitely some fear around cults because there are several of them that have offed themselves, right? Which I'm definitely not a fan of. Let me just say that up front. Not a fan of offing ourselves. There's one that famously offed themselves because they believed that once they do that, they will transition to the other side, and then they will meet up with interdimensional beings that are flying on a comet that is soaring past the Earth. And I scratched that was a real head scratcher for me. Like, if you want to meet up with interdimensional beings, all you got to do is take some psychedelics. Like, there's plenty of good psychedelics out there now. Just take some mushrooms and you can meet up with some alien bros on a comet. I don't think it's necessary to off yourself, especially in the way that they did. They mixed barbiturates with applesauce, which I was like, applesauce? I wouldn't want my last meal to be like a poisoned spoonful of applesauce, like I'm in some convalescence home or something. So that doesn't work for me. I would much rather sprinkle some barbiturates on like a filet mignon, right? Or at the very least, like a good pepperoni pizza or something. So I'm not here to judge them and their tactics, but it's just not the way that I would have done things. There's another cult that famously offed themselves with cyanide-laced Kool-Aid, which, again, not for me. Not for me. I'm not here to judge, but I think that Kool-Aid is trashy. It's trashy. It's disgusting. I'm just going to say it. Not a fan of Kool-Aid, so I don't understand why they would do that. Apparently cyanide has toasty almond flavor profile that probably would have gone better with like a nice buttery Chardonnay. So I don't know why they chose Kool-Aid, but to each their own, right? I'm not here to judge them, but I just feel like we're meant to be beacons of light in this dark world. We're not meant to snuff that light out while we're here. I think that we're meant to, at the end of the day, we're meant to die in the natural way with, coronary heart disease and stress. That's how God intended it, to die from coronary heart disease and stress. So I'm definitely a promoter of not snuffing ourselves out. So if that's something you're concerned about, don't worry about it. Because at the end of the day, I believe that all of this is an illusion, as the ancients tell us, that this is all an illusion or a dream or a simulation, as the tech bros will tell you. And so I try not to take it all too seriously. I believe that we are eternal beings, that we are emanations of the Creator itself that is living through its own creation in this 3D human avatar, that I am not Matt Owens, that I am not American, that I am not here now, but I am the consciousness of the divine experiencing the 3D realm through this human being known as Matt Owens. So I'm here to practice the art of letting go. I'm practicing the art of going with the flow. I'm doing my best to expand my consciousness, expand my heart and my mind, in order to, fulfill my destiny, to fulfill my purpose, and to experience as much peace and love as I can while on this planet. So those are the things that I'm pursuing and that I'm promoting here at a Cult of Misfits. And I know that this is not for everybody. I know that there are many people that will be offended by the things that I've said, which is, of course, is not my intention. But there will be many people that the word cult will rub them the wrong way. And in many ways, that's sort of a gatekeeping tactic that, if you don't like the word cult, then this cult is probably not for you, right? It's probably not for you. And I know that I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I don't expect everybody to agree with what I'm saying, and I think that that's okay. I would encourage that. We're not all here to be exact, perfect clones of each other. We're here to be open-minded, to talk about shared beliefs and shared struggles, and that's what the purpose of A Cult of Misfits is going to be from here on out. I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of excited to have this new challenge before me of creating a new sermon, a message on a regular basis, where we can sort of talk about the things that we're struggling with here in the 3D world, and some of the things that I've learned how to apply into my own life in order to get over those hurdles and to release fears and worries and anxieties and things of that sort. So things that I feel like aren't really talked about. You can go on YouTube, as I have, and find videos about it, or maybe you find somebody on Instagram that you relate to or whatever. But it's just, my intention here is to create a community, that sort of a Sunday service at a church type of a vibe, where we can sort of have a regular meeting place, sort of a sanctuary to come to, where we can just be ourselves and we can just talk about the weird things that we believe in without any judgment or fear that somebody's going to condemn us for having these beliefs or thoughts, and where we can talk about it. So I don't know where it's going to lead or what's next for this, but I'm just taking one step at a time, as I always do, and just trying to live in the now moment and step in the right direction where the snakes are leading me, apparently. But I look forward to it, and I look forward to talking with you guys and meeting with you guys. And once I start getting this thing on a regular basis and get it in motion, I'd like to eventually start doing it live and to start talking with you guys and maybe meeting afterwards and setting up things of that sort. So these are my intentions. The podcast up until this point has sort of been a personal diary, of all of the things that I'm struggling with in my life, of addiction and stress and worry and all that stuff, dark nights of the soul and things of that sort, of things that I've been working through. And so I'm sort of shifting it now. I want to have a shift to more of a teaching mode rather than a personal diary mode. Where we can talk about things and learn and grow together in that shared sense of community. So for now, that's all I got. Love you.